Hi, this is Charlie again, and I'm continuing my project for MS548, and this is Advanced Programming and AI at University of Advancing Technology. So from the last video, I had a text-based version of this program that I used TextBlob in order to do text analysis. In this one, I've added the TKinter or TKinter library, which is a Python GUI kind of generation library. So I've done that, and I'll walk you through what we've done here. So the first thing is we create a new interface, a new window, and the next thing is this is the window title, and you'll see that when we actually run the program. Size of the window as it starts, and you can adjust that based on the content. And these are all the how it's going to be set up as far as how the tabs are aligned and all of that. Creating the tabs. So I've got 5 tabs in my program. So we create a tab control for each one of those. And then we name each one, which is right here. Moving down into the labels. So these are the tabs and these are the labels on each of those. These are still the same functions that I had previously, except I've added some additional pieces. The same ones are there: part of speech tagging, correct spelling, pluralizing, and sentiment analysis. The items that I've added to this is I've created a check to make sure that this is a sentence and people aren't entering numbers. So you can see check valid input. If we come down to here, check valid input is looking for if any character is a digit, then it's going to give a pop-up which will tell it numbers found and not let you do it. Otherwise, in the console, it'll let us know all good and it'll continue with the program. And this is the code to define the pop-up message, also using this TKinter window title, what it's going to do, and then how you exit out of it. Moving back up to the first one that we talked about, part of speech tagging. So if we get a invalid result, so if it's not valid, we're going to go ahead and clear the results that would normally appear, because normally it would still handle that numerical input. It just wouldn't give you any good data. Otherwise, if it is all, alphabetical characters, then it'll go ahead and run the TextBlob functions, and these I've talked about last time. The main difference is in order to keep the troubleshooting going, I've added a print, which allows it to come up here in the console when I'm running it. And then additionally, these are file manipulation. So I'm opening a new file called part of speech text, and I'm appending the results of this function onto that. So it's going to write the sentence, which is a string, and then it's going to write the process text. So it'll be what it was and how it changed it, and then it's going to close the file. And then this last one is displaying the output to the tab in the display, and you'll see more about that when I run it. Correct spelling works the same way, except it's actually using a different function. So in this one, we're using tag the parts of speech. So this comes from TextBlob.tags. On this one, we're using .correct. On the pluralize, it's words pluralize. And then finally, this last one is sentiment subjectivity and sentiment polarity. And what I had to do is, because TextBlob would give me in the console, it would tell me the words polarity, subjectivity, along with the numerical values. When I passed that to the tab output, it was stripping away the words and only giving me the numbers, which is a little less useful. So I went back and added in the polarity and the subjectivity tags onto that. And once again, I'm writing that to the file. these are just to clear the input on the different tabs. Or sorry, these are to clear the input box, and these are to clear the display results. And then finally, this one is for quitting the program. We've already talked about the valid input and the pop-up message. And these are how the tabs are defined. So we've got a label at the beginning of the tab. We have an input box. We've got 4 buttons, which are resetting the input, processing the input, clearing the output, and quitting the program. And so basically these are used for the different tabs. The thing to note with TKinter is you put commands on each of those and they're calling your functions. There's my part of speech tagging because it aligns with that particular tab. Otherwise, they're similar. The other thing to be aware of is you do have to label, in this case, which tab that scrolled text is assigned to. And you can see in each of those it's different. So that's how the basic program works. And in addition, down here, I've just added the part of speech tagging so that somebody could come into the help tab and see what those are. So the next thing we'll do is we'll select all of this and we'll go ahead and run it. So you can see in this case, we did get an error saying no module named TextBlob. I forgot that I ran this previously on my other computer. So what we would need to do, I will switch over and show you the installation commands. And I'm using Spider as my IDE, and there's an Anaconda prompt that comes with that. So I'll show you the commands that you would need to do for that. Okay, so this is the Anaconda prompt now. And in order to do the installation, it's pip install dash uppercase U TextBlob. That'll go ahead and download it, and if you already have it, it'll upgrade it. And then the second command is going to be this one, python-m textblob.download underscored corpora. So those are the two that you need to do in order to get everything running. So once I have that done, I can select everything again. And we can hit run, and we see that now we have a successful run, and I'll switch over to that particular window. Okay, now our program is running. So as you can see across the top, we've got the part of speech tagging, we've got the correct spelling, pluralize, sentiment analysis, and finally that part of speech list as a cheat sheet. So in the first one, we talked about error correction, or making sure that our input is correct. So if I type in 1, 2, 3 here, it's not something that I'm going to be able to get part of speech out of. So if I hit process input, it's going to now tell you, please enter characters A to Z only, and it doesn't allow the output down there. So if I come over here, hit OK, I can reset the input. Okay, so once we've actually got that input cleared out, we can type a sentence. This is a sample sentence, period, and we can process the input. So what we get here is the output, which is parts of speech. So it'll show you what each word is considered. And if you go over to the list, so the first one we're looking for is DT. Right here, it's a determiner. So this and A is a determiner. Is, I think we know that's a verb. Verb, third person singular. JJ, come back over here. It's an adjective. Sentence is NN, which should be noun. Noun singular. So you can see that it actually does that. We can either reset the input by itself and it'll leave the output. We can also clear the output to completely clear it. On to spelling. Essentially, you're not always going to get perfect responses from this because it'll determine whether or not the word you're putting is closer to one or another. But for instance, if we do something like this, so we've misspelled the word spelling and we process that input and it gets it correct. The other thing that I want to show you is I'm keeping everything outputting to the console, which will show me my errors, that numbers are found, or whether or not it's good. It also outputs the output of our work into the console so we can check for any errors. So that's the spelling. And the other thing it'll do is if we clear the input, it'll add new words down the list as they go. So the input can stay and you can kind of pile up the correct words below that while resetting the input, and they're independent. Pluralization is essentially taking words that we know like cat, dog, horse, and it'll process those to pluralize them. So cats, dogs, horses. It'll also do some of the other one. I need the spelling now. There we go. Mouse, process the input to mice. So you can see that that works for a wide variety of pluralizing words. Sentiment analysis is interesting, and it's got two pieces to it. And we'll show that. So if I make a sentence and I say, this is the best cake, it's going to tell me the polarity and the subjectivity. And essentially polarity is how good or how positive or negative is the statement, 1.0 being the highest, -1 being the lowest, and also how subjective is it. A high subjectivity of 1.0 would be that it's completely opinion and I'm making that judgment, where 0 would be a known fact. And so there's a positive. We can simply change that. This is the worst case, so we get a polarity of -1, subjectivity of 1. If we add multiple things, it will change some of those. So that's essentially our sentiment analysis. I've already shown the parts of speech list. And finally, we can go ahead and quit out of this. The other thing I want to show is that I've also made it, we talked about the file logging for each of these functions, and I'll show you that real fast. The first one that we'll look at is in order that we use the program, so part of speech. Here's the part of speech. You can see we typed in this is a sample sentence, and we got all the tags along with that. Had we done more, they would have just appended onto the bottom of this. The next one was the spelling correction. We originally misspelled spelling, and that showed the original and the corrected. And then we misspelled testing, which showed the original and corrected as well. Pluralize, we first did cat, dog, horse, and there's our response, cats, dogs, horses. And then the next one was mouse, and it pluralized it to mice. And the last one is the sentiment analysis, and I tried to break this up so that it was easily readable. We have the sentence that we used, as well as the response of polarity and subjectivity. And so ultimately, these are all of the files that were saved and the code that was here. And I'll add the comments, or in the comments, how to make sure you've got TextBlob installed. And any other questions, please put them in the comments. Have a great day.